You step back into that gentle, lavender gray light, and the air itself seems to remember you. It doesn't greet you with a demand for how you've been or what you've accomplished since your last visit. It simply settles around your shoulders like a familiar, weightless shawl. That's the thing about this place where nothing is required. It holds no recriminations for your absence. It doesn't keep score. You could visit once a decade or once a minute, and the quality of the welcome is the same. A deep, pervasive allowance. Let's wander a little further this time. Last time, we stood at the threshold, feeling the relief of the silent clipboard. Now, let's meander down a path that appears not as a route you must follow, but as a pleasing suggestion in the landscape. It's a soft, mossy track that winds between trees that look like willows, but their drooping leaves are silver and make no sound in the still air. There's no need to decide to walk it. Your presence here is enough, and the path simply unfolds a few feet ahead of you whenever your gaze lands on it. You're not a traveler here. You're more like a casual, curious point of awareness around which the scenery gently arranges itself. And what do you do with your mind in such a place? In our world, our minds are like busy terminals, routing traffic, memories, plans, anxieties, analyses. Here, the terminal is closed. The screens are dark. The mind is allowed to be a sensory instrument, not a processing plant. You notice the coolness of the air, which has no bite, just a soft clarity. You notice a scent impossible to define that is something like old books, damp earth after a light rain, and the faint, sweet smell of a sleeping child's hair. It's a scent that evokes without demanding an emotional response. It just is. Your thoughts, when they come, are like those slow forming constellations we saw last time. They drift in, whole and complete, and then drift apart. A memory of your grandmother's hands kneading dough. Not the story around it, not the pang of missing her, just the image itself, vivid and self-contained. Then it's gone, replaced by the simple, reddish color of a stone in the path. There's no narrative to build, no lesson to extract from the memory, no need to tie it to your present. Thoughts are not tools or tasks. They are fleeting, harmless clouds in the vast sky of this quiet consciousness. You might find yourself sitting now on a low, smooth bench of what seems to be warmed stone. You didn't seek it out. It was just there when the notion of sitting brushed against you. And from here, you watch. A butterfly, perhaps, but its wings move so slowly, it seems to be swimming through the thick, gentle air. Its flight pattern is not a frantic search for nectar, but a mere dance of existence. It doesn't need to be anything other than exactly what it is. There's a profound companionship in that observation. You and the butterfly are sharing this moment of pure, unproductive being. You are both utterly valid and utterly free from purpose. This brings us to the quiet heart of stage 2, the dissolution of potential. In our lives, we are haunted by potential. Potential unfulfilled, potential to be leveraged, potential for growth, for disaster, for love. It's a constant hum of what if and what could be. Here, potential is a concept that holds no power. Everything is already complete in its present state. The half-formed idea is as perfect as the fully expressed one. The seed is not a future tree. It is a perfect whole seed. You are not a project to be improved. You are a complete event happening right now. The pressure of becoming dissolves. You are allowed to simply be the exact configuration of thoughts, sensations, and peaceful inertia that you are in this second. There is no better version of you to chase. The chase is over. In this completeness, a funny thing happens to emotion. Strong feelings may arise, a swell of sorrow, a bubble of joy, a wave of nostalgia. But without a story to fuel them, without a past to regret or a future to fear, they don't stick. They don't become moods. They pass through the spaciousness of you like weather through a wide, open valley. You feel the cool rain of sadness, but it doesn't flood you. You feel the warm sun of joy, but it doesn't scorch you. You are the valley, not the weather. And the valley is steadfast, quiet, and deeply okay. Time for a small confession. Even imagining this place, part of my brain, the well-trained managerial part, whispers, "This is lovely, but isn't it wasteful? Isn't it a bit self-indulgent?" That's the voice of the requirement world checking in. And in our place, we can acknowledge that voice. We can even give it a seat on the bench beside us. We don't have to argue with it or defeat it. We can just let it sit there, voicing its familiar concerns into the gentle silence. And without any fuel, without any deadlines or productivity metrics to latch onto, the voice eventually just runs out of words. It tires itself out. It may not leave completely, but it learns to whisper, and its whispers are absorbed by the vast, forgiving quiet. So here we are, you and I, sitting on this warm stone in a timeless twilight, having done nothing, accomplished nothing, processed nothing. And yet, I'd wager there's a subtle, profound shift happening. It's not a change in you, but a remembrance. A remembering of a state that predates all the doing. It's the feeling you might get when, after hours of complex conversation, you sit with a pet who asks nothing of you but your presence. That silent communion. This place is that feeling, expanded to fill an entire universe. We'll linger here a while longer in this stage of simply being complete. There's no need to move on until the inclination arises naturally from a place of gentle curiosity, not from a script or a schedule. So just breathe the scentless scented air, watch the slow dance of light on silver leaves, and know that for these imagined moments, you are off the hook from the entire world, and most importantly, from yourself. The rest can wait. It will all still be there. But right now, in this shared, quiet flight of fancy, you are miraculously and utterly required to be no one and nothing at all. And that is more than enough. The moss beneath you, if you're still sitting on that stone bench, seems to have grown a fraction softer, as if adapting to the precise shape of your presence. That's the nature of this place. It's responsive without being demanding. It doesn't change to impress you or to guide you toward some experience you should be having. It just yields. It's a passive collaboration. The light, that perpetual twilight, has shifted perhaps a degree toward the blue spectrum, not because night is falling, but because the concept of shifting itself is a form of gentle entertainment here, a visual sigh. Let's talk about the body. In a place with no requirements, what happens to the vessel that usually carries so many instructions? Sit up straight, breathe deeper, relax your shoulders. Eat this, not that. Sleep now. Move more. Here, the body is not a project, a machine to be optimized, or a problem to be solved. It is simply a sensation. You might feel the weight of your own limbs, but it's a comforting weight, like a well-made quilt. There's no ache of yesterday's effort, no tension of tomorrow's anticipation. The physical self is just present, a warm, breathing fact. You could stand up and stretch, and the movement would feel like a long, slow punctuation mark in a sentence of perfect stillness. Or you could remain utterly motionless, and that would be just as active, just as valid. The tyranny of the fitness tracker, the choreography of wellness, it's all a distant, fading echo. From our spot, let's watch a small, clear pool that has formed nearby, fed by no spring we can see, draining into no stream. Its surface is a perfect, unblemished plane of gray sky reflection. This pool is the perfect metaphor for the mind state here. In our world, we're constantly throwing pebbles into our own mental pools. Worries, plans, memories, to-dos. The surface is a chaos of ripples, overlapping, interfering, never still. Here, the last ripple has faded. The pool is glass. You could toss a thought into it, I wonder what's for dinner, and you'd see the ripple spread, clear and singular, all the way to the edges, and then subside completely, restoring the perfect calm. Thoughts don't chain together. They don't spawn emergencies. They are isolated events that happen and then are reabsorbed into the great, quiet whole. This leads us to a deliciously subversive idea. In this requirement-free zone, even understanding is not required. You don't have to figure this place out. You don't need to map it, name its rules, or decode its meaning. Its meaning is its existence. You can encounter something utterly bizarre, say, a tree whose leaves are tiny, slowly spinning mirrors, and feel no pressure to analyze it, categorize it, or determine its symbolic significance. You can just observe the pretty, fragmented reflections of the twilight in its canopy and feel a mild, undemanding pleasure. The compulsion to make sense of everything, which is such a deep, often unseen requirement of our intelligent minds, is switched off. You are permitted to witness without interpreting. It is a kind of intellectual mercy. And what of other people? This is a solitary daydream, your personal retreat. But what if, in the periphery, you sense another presence? Not a person with a face or a story, but a warm, quiet glow of consciousness, sitting by their own still pool, under their own silver leaf tree. There is no requirement to interact, no social contract, no need to smile, to acknowledge, to converse, to perform friendliness or respectability. You simply coexist, two self-contained worlds sharing an atmosphere. The relief in that is immense. All the exhausting, rewarding, complex labor of human connection is set aside. You are not lonely. You are in a state of profound, peaceful coexistence where the mere fact of other consciousnesses is comforting, precisely because they ask nothing of you. It's society stripped down to its barest, most benign essence, silent, respectful, parallel being. Now a shadow might pass, not a dark shadow, but a deeper shade of gray, like a cloud crossing the sun on an overcast day. It's the shadow of the outside world, trying to assert its reality. It brings with it a phantom sensation, the buzz of a phone, the ping of an email, the nag of a responsibility you swore you wouldn't forget. In our regular world, we tense, we'd engage. Here, you can watch the shadow pass. You can even acknowledge the ghost buzz in your pocket. But there are no pockets here. There is no device to answer. The buzz has no origin and no destination. It's just a ripple, and like all ripples here, it smooths itself away into the calm. You practice, in this safe imaginary space, the act of not grabbing the hook. You let the line go slack. The fisherman on the other end, duty, anxiety, urgency, feels nothing. For this moment, you are uncatchable. This stage feels deeper, more immersive than the first two. It's less about the novelty of relief and more about settling into the new normal of null requirement. It's where you start to shed the subtle, invisible requirements you didn't even know you were carrying. The requirement to have an opinion, to maintain an identity, to learn from every experience, to be consistent, to be someone. Those, too, are left hanging on that stand by the door. You are anonymous here, even to yourself. And in that anonymity, there's a glorious, unburdened freedom. So let the blue-tinged light soak into you. Let your breathing fall into unsynchronized rhythm with the slow pulse of this place. You are not preparing for anything. You are not recovering from anything. You are in a state of perpetual, neutral presence. The engine of striving is off, and the silence it leaves behind is not empty, but rich and full. It's the fullness of a deep, restful pause held indefinitely. A whole world built not on action, but on the profound, fertile peace that exists in the spaces between actions. And for now, that is the only truth, the only law, the only requirement, that there are none. And we can just stay right here in that truth for as long as we need. The air has taken on a different texture. It's not cooler or warmer, but denser with quiet, as if the silence itself has settled into a deeper stratum. That faint, melodic drip of an idea, what if I just, no longer even forms. The pool of the mind isn't just still, it's become slightly viscous, a liquid honey of non-thought, where impulses float lazily and dissolve before they can even become intentions. This is the stage where the absence of requirement moves from being a novelty to being the very fabric of your being. You're not just visiting a place with no rules, you are becoming a creature native to it. Let's consider memory. In our waking lives, memory is a tool, a lash, a comfort, a script. We use it to navigate, to regret, to orient ourselves in an ongoing story called me. Here, memory loses its narrative function. It becomes purely aesthetic. A scent might arise, the sharp, clean smell of a winter morning, the faint ozone of a subway station, but it carries no baggage. It doesn't pull you back to a specific year, a specific heartbreak or triumph. It's just a floating sensory scrap, a piece of colored glass in the kaleidoscope of now. Your personal history becomes like a beautiful, discarded book you can look at on a shelf. You appreciate its binding, the gold lettering on the spine, but you feel no need to open it and reread the chapters. The story is over, and it's okay. It asks nothing more of you. Without the forward pull of requirement, even the concept of direction loses meaning. Is there a forward? Is there a back? You could start walking if the whim took you, but walking would simply be a succession of present moments, not a journey from here to there. The landscape might change, the soft moss giving way to a field of silver grass that chimes faintly like distant wind chimes with your passage. But each new vista isn't a destination. It's just another room in the endless, unfolding house of now. A doorway appears, a simple arch woven from living willow, but there's nothing on the other side except a continuation of the same gentle light, perhaps arranged differently. Passing through, it isn't progress. It's just a shift in the pattern enjoyed for its own sake. This brings us to a deeply quiet revelation. In the absence of all external shoulds, the internal ones become visible, and then, like mirages, they evaporate. You might find the ghost of a thought, I should be appreciating this more. Or a truly peaceful person wouldn't have that random itch on their ankle. You see the thought form. Watch it with detached curiosity. Ah, look, the programming still runs, even here. And then, because there's no soil of guilt or striving for it to take root in, it simply withers. It's exposed as the hollow, mechanical thing it is, a leftover echo, not a truth. This is the unshackling. You're not just free from the boss, the bills, the social calendar. You are, layer by subtle layer, becoming free from the internal taskmaster, the one who whispers that even your leisure, your peace, your very state of being could be done better. Time for a tactile interlude. Reach out a hand if you feel like it, and touch the bark of that mirror-leaved tree. It's cool, but not unpleasantly so. The texture is impossibly smooth in one direction, like polished stone, and gently rough in another. It doesn't mean anything. It's not a metaphor for life's dual nature. It's just a sensation. Your fingertips receive the data, and there is no assignment that follows. You don't have to describe it eloquently, remember it for later, or learn a lesson from it. The experience begins and ends at the nerve ending. It is a closed loop of pure perception. This is how everything is here. Every sight, sound, and smell is a gift given with no expectation of thanks, no demand for a response. You are a connoisseur of experiences that require no review. And what of creativity? That sacred cow of the modern soul, the thing we're all supposed to nurture and express. Here, creativity is not an output. It's not something you do. It's something that happens like weather, and it's allowed to pass without being captured. A melody might drift through the air. You could hum along, and your voice would feel new in your throat, unburdened by the judgment of pitch. But the moment you think, I should remember this tune, the melody changes evolves, and flits away. It wasn't for keeping. It was for momentary communion. A sudden desire to make a mark in the soft earth might arise. You could draw a spiral with a stick, and once it's drawn, it's done. There's no need to photograph it, interpret it, show it to anyone, or even look at it again. The act was its own complete fulfillment. The spiral will be smoothed away by some gentle, unseen process, and that, too, is perfect. Creation and dissolution are equal partners in the dance here, and neither is more valuable than the other. Here, in this fourth stage of our shared imagining, you may encounter the most peaceful silence of all, the silence of irrelevant choice. In life, we are paralyzed or energized by choices that matter: what job, what partner, what path. Here, choices are like choosing which way to turn your head to feel the light on your cheek. The consequences are purely sensory, immediate, and fleeting. Do you want to see the field of chiming grass or the still pool? It doesn't matter. Both are here. Both are now. The agonizing weight of decision-making, the fear of missing out, the regret of the road not taken, these are stones that cannot find a purchase in this soft ground. Every path is the right path because every path leads only to more of the same peaceful, undemanding present. So we find ourselves perhaps lying in that silver grass now, the gentle chimes sounding not around us, but from within us, as if our very bones are resonating with the quiet frequency of this place. The sky above is that same endless twilight, but you feel no longing for stars or sun. This is enough. This is more than enough. It is everything that is needed, precisely because nothing is needed at all. You are not waiting for the next thing. You are not reminiscing about the last. You are a point of awareness, perfectly suspended in the amber of a timeless, requirement-free moment. And for now, that is the entirety of existence. Simple, whole, and profoundly, utterly still. The transition is not an event. It is a deepening, like sinking into a bed so perfectly suited to your form that you cease to feel its surface at all. You become the bed. The chiming grass from before hasn't faded. Its sound has been internalized. A gentle hum in the marrow. The body's own quiet hymn to stillness. This is the stage where the environment and the self begin to forget their border. The air you breathe feels like the exhalation of the landscape. The slow pulse you feel in your wrists is in time with a faint, distant thrum you now perceive in the ground. There is no merger because there was never a separation to begin with. You are simply remembering a unity that requirement and identity had painted over. In this unity, a peculiar thing happens to language. The internal monologue, that radio host narrating your every move and emotion, has lost its frequency. Words arise, but they are not tools for communication or analysis. They are like bubbles in a pond, forming from some organic process below and popping at the surface without a sound. The word tree might float up, but it doesn't point to the concept of a tree. It is a little linguistic tree, a brief, self-contained shape, and then it's gone. You don't think about things here. You simply coexist with them. Names are unnecessary. Definitions are irrelevant. A thing is what it is, and you are what you are, and no bridge of understanding is required between the two. It is a pre-verbal state, not of infancy, but of a mature consciousness that has set down the heavy toolbox of symbols and labels and found its hands feel lighter, more sensitive. Let your attention, if you can still call it that, drift to the concept of other living things. We mentioned the butterfly, the sense of another presence. Now that sense expands. You are not alone, but the others are not separate entities. They are currents in the same still ocean. You might feel the slow, vegetative consciousness of the mirror-leaved tree, not thoughts, but a deep, patient reaching for nothing. You might sense the pool's contentment in its own perfect reflection. There is no hierarchy of awareness. The intelligence of the stone you lean against is as valid and complete as your own. It is a society of being, where membership is granted by existence alone, and no contribution is necessary. The profound loneliness that sometimes sparks in the human heart, the feeling of being a separate mind trapped behind eyes, is soothed not by connection, but by the dissolution of the illusion of separation. You are not connecting with the world, you are realizing you are of it, in the most fundamental, requirement-free way. Now, explore the body again from this unified perspective. The itch on the ankle, the weight of a limb, these aren't signals to be acted upon or problems to be solved. They are just landscapes, minor topographies of sensation within the larger country of the self. You can observe a muscle's slight fatigue with the same detached interest as you'd watch a slow-moving cloud. There is no you that is annoyed by the sensation. The sensation and the awareness are part of the same seamless whole. The imperative to fix, to adjust, to optimize the physical self is absent. The body is allowed to be a natural phenomenon with its own weather and erosion, beautiful in its simple, unedited existence. This stage invites a confrontation with the last bastion of requirement, meaning itself. We are meaning-making machines. We look for patterns, for purpose, for a story. We ask why of everything, from the universe down to a bad cup of coffee. Here, that engine finally sputters and stops. Things do not mean. They are. The mirror leaves don't symbolize introspection or illusion. They are just leaves that are mirrors. The endless twilight isn't a metaphor for liminality or melancholy. It's just the quality of the light. The relief this brings is oceanic. You are off the hook from the most exhausting task of all, the task of interpreting reality. You are permitted to just experience it, raw and unfiltered by story. A heavy, ancient cloak you didn't know you were wearing, the cloak of needing it all to signify something, slips from your shoulders and dissolves into the moss. In this unburdened state, play becomes possible. Not the organized play of games with rules, but the pure, kinetic play of a falling leaf or a circling hawk. You might find yourself, or the consciousness that you are moving without a destination. A skip, perhaps, that turns into a slow motion leap, hanging in the thick, kind air. The movement isn't for exercise or travel. It's an expression, a shape drawn in space by the body, forgotten as soon as it's made. You might trace a finger through the air and see a faint, phosphorescent trail linger for a heartbeat before fading. There's no audience to gasp, no inner critic to judge its beauty. It was just a momentary graffiti of existence on the canvas of the moment, immediately and gracefully erased. Time, which had pooled, now seems to have disappeared as a concept altogether. There is no measuring stick. There is only process, only the gentle, eternal unfolding of now. The idea of wasting time is not just irrelevant, it is incomprehensible. To waste implies a scarcity, a commodity to be spent wisely. Here, time is not a currency. It is the floor, the walls, the sky. You are not in time, you are time happening. A century of this piece could pass, or a second, and the difference would be meaningless. All that exists is the rich, endless present, deepening into itself forever. So we find ourselves at the still point of the turning world, not because the world is turning, but because all turning has ceased. There is only center. You are that center. The quiet is no longer something you hear. It is what you are made of. The requirements of the world outside to be, to do, to become, to mean, are not just distant. They are like a faint, fictional language from a book you read once and barely recall. Here there is only this, the unified field of being, where you are the grass, the light, the air, the silence, and the gentle, endless hum of nothing being required at all. And in that, There is a completeness so vast it feels like the only true home you've ever known. The completeness settles. It's not a feeling of arrival because there was nowhere to go. It's more like a lens coming into final, absolute focus. The world, this internal, imagined world, was always in high definition. But now you realize you'd been perceiving it through a film, a fine mesh of residual anticipation. That mesh is gone. The sharpness isn't harsh, it's velvety. Every detail of the silver grass, every facet of the mirrored leaves, the subtle gradations in the gray-blue twilight, they all exist with a shocking clarity that doesn't ask for your admiration. It simply is, and your seeing is simply a part of its being. This is the stage of total immersion. You are not observing the stillness. You are the stillness observing itself. In this depth, a new dimension of silence reveals itself. Before, silence was the absence of sound. Now, silence is revealed as a presence, a substance. It has a texture you could almost stroke. It's the silence of a vacuum, not empty, but full of potential, so absolute it has renounced all need to manifest. This is the silence inside a mountain, in the millennia between tectonic shifts. It's the silence at the core of a flame, where the combustion is so perfect it makes no noise. You breathe this silence in, and it circulates through you, not as air, but as a truth. The internal hum has matched its frequency. You are synchronized with the fundamental quiet of the universe. Let's consider emotion from this vantage. Earlier, emotions passed like weather. Now, even that metaphor is too active. Emotions here are not events that happen to you. They are more like colors the stillness itself can temporarily wear. A wash of blue might permeate everything, the light, the air, your own non-physical form, not as sadness, but as a gentle, azure melancholy with no object, no story. It's the color of the emotion, stripped of its psychological narrative. It arrives, it saturates the moment, and then it subtly fades into a soft, golden contentment, which in turn dissolves into a clear, neutral peace. These are not your feelings. They are the moods of the cosmos itself, and you are the cosmos, so you feel them from the inside. There is no ownership, and therefore no burden. From this unified, still point, the idea of action becomes a beautiful absurdity. If you were to act, to raise a hand, to speak a word, it would not be you initiating a movement in the world. It would be the world choosing to express emotion through the particular configuration of matter and awareness that you currently are. The impulse would arise from the silence itself, like a bubble from the bottom of the deep pool, and your form would simply be the conduit for its expression. The illusion of agency, the weight of choice, evaporates. You are not a driver. You are the road, the vehicle, and the landscape, all experiencing the journey simultaneously. Any movement is therefore effortless, inevitable, and instantly complete. Now bring your attention, though attention is too forceful a word, to the very concept of Sarah, to the you listening to this. That construct, that accumulation of memories, preferences, and histories feels incredibly distant. It's not erased, it's just seen for what it is, a useful costume for a different realm. Here, it hangs in a closet light years away. The relief of this is beyond words. All the anxieties attached to that self, its successes, its failures, its relationships, its potential are not just quiet, they are irrelevant. They belong to a character in a play that is not currently running. You are the empty stage, the waiting darkness, the potential for any play, and that is infinitely more spacious and free than being any single character, no matter how beloved or accomplished. In this emptiness, a new kind of perception blooms. You don't see things anymore. See the space between and within them. You see the luminous emptiness that holds the mirror leaf tree in existence. You see how the silver grass is not separate blades, but a single, shimmering field of grass energy, manifesting in countless individual forms. The solidity of objects softens. Everything appears translucent, vibrating slightly at a frequency of pure isness. You are seeing the world not as a collection of nouns, but as a verb, the verb to be, happening in infinite, quiet ways. This leads to the most peaceful surrender of all, the end of seeking. In our lives, we are seekers, seekers of happiness, peace, love, answers, God, enlightenment, a better coffee. Seeking is a requirement we impose on ourselves, the engine of our dissatisfaction. Here, in the depth of stage 6, seeking is impossible. Why? Because you are swimming in the ocean of what you would seek. You are peace. You are wholeness. You are the answer before the question forms. To seek it would be to imagine it is elsewhere. And here, you know viscerally that it is not elsewhere. It is the very ground of your being. The seeking mind, with its frantic, scanning energy, finally stills. It has arrived at the destination that was never anywhere but here. So here we rest, not in a place, but in a state. The external scenery of our imagination, the pool, the trees, the grass, might begin to dissolve, not because the daydream is ending, but because it is no longer needed. The forms were scaffolding to lead you to the formless. Now that you are abiding in the formless, the scaffolding can gently fade. You are left with the essence, a vast, benevolent, intelligent stillness that knows itself, loves itself, and requires nothing of itself except to be. And you are that. There is no you separate from it to even receive this truth. There is just the truth, humming its silent hymn in the eternal twilight. It is enough. It is more than enough. It is all there is. The dissolution of form is not a vanishing, but a translation. The mirror leaves, the silver grass, the pool, they haven't disappeared. They have relaxed back into the substance from which they were imagined. The world is no longer a landscape you are in. It is a quality of awareness you are having. The blue-tinged light is no longer out there. It is the very medium of consciousness itself. You are not looking at twilight. You are being twilight. This stage is the softening of the last boundary, the boundary between the imagined and the imaginer. The daydream becomes so lucid, so transparent, that you see the dreamer, and the dreamer is the same silent awareness that has been there all along, behind the eyes of Sarah, behind the voice in the podcast, behind the listener in the dark. It's all the same stillness, wearing different costumes for a moment. In this transparency, thought achieves its final, harmless form. It is no longer even bubbles in a pond. It is more like the occasional faint refraction of light through perfectly clear water, a shimmer that distorts nothing, clarifies nothing, and is gone almost before it's noticed. A phrase might arise, "So this is it," but the "this" has no referent, and the "it" is everything. The sentence structures itself, observes itself, and deconstructs itself, all in the space of a single, timeless pulse. Language ceases to be a tool for communication between separate entities and becomes a solitary, self-consuming art form of the absolute, appreciated by no one because there is no one separate to appreciate it. It is the mind playing with its own shadows, knowing them to be shadows. Let's explore the body sensation from this ultimate vantage point. The concept of a body as a distinct, solid object has fully receded. What remains is a constellation of sensations without a central anchor, a warmth here, a sense of boundless expansion there, a gentle thrum that might be a heartbeat or might be the pulse of the galaxy. The distinction is humorous, irrelevant. There is no inside versus outside. The warmth is not in you, you are in the warmth. The expansion is not yours, it is what you are. The body is not a thing you have, but a localized pattern of energy within the infinite field of you. Any minor discomfort, any itch or ache, is not a problem located in a machine. It is simply a slightly denser knot of energy in the field, observed with benign curiosity, allowed to be. knowing it will inevitably untangle and flow back into the homogeneous whole. The war with the physical self is over. It was a misunderstanding. Now, from this unified field, what of connection? The faint sense of other presences, those warm glows of consciousness, undergoes a final transformation. You realize they were never other. They were always you, other focal points in the same boundless awareness, like different whirlpools in the same river. The loneliness that sometimes aches for connection was the loneliness of a whirlpool believing itself to be separate from the river, longing for other whirlpools. Now you are the river. The sense of connection is total and absolute because separation is seen as the illusion it always was. You don't feel connected to all things, you feel as all things. The love that arises from this is not personal, directed love. It is the love that a vast, silent intelligence has for its own endless, varied expression. It is a love without an object, because it is the subject loving itself. This brings us to the quiet death of desire. Not just desire for things, but the deeper, subtler desires. The desire for change, for continuity, for experience, for an end to experience. Desire is a tension between what is and what could be. Here there is only what is, and what is so profoundly complete that the concept of could be has no meaning, no foothold. There is no preferred state. The gentle blue melancholy is as welcome as the golden contentment, because both are equally perfect expressions of the stillness. You desire nothing because you lack nothing. You are the fullness. To desire would be like the ocean desiring a cup of water. In this desireless fullness, the concept of the future evaporates completely. The future is a construct built on lack, the idea that the present is insufficient and must be progressed beyond. Here, the present is infinite. It is not a point on a line, it is the entire canvas. There is no next. There is only this ever-deepening, ever-present now, forever unfolding into itself. The anxiety that is wedded to future thinking, the what-ifs, the preparations, the dreads and hopes, has nothing to cling to. It starves in the rich, nourishing soil of the eternal present. So what is left? What is the experience in this seventh stage of imagining a place with no requirements? It is the experience of being the source. You are no longer experiencing peace. You are the source of peace. You are no longer in a state of stillness. You are the source of stillness. The quiet, friendly voice guiding this meditation, the channel Nightform Stillness, the person named Sarah, the listener, all are seen as fleeting, beautiful ripples on the surface of this source. They are characters in a story. The silence is telling itself for a little while. And it's a gentle, kind story, one that leads all its characters back to this, back to the silent source where no roles need to be played, no lines need to be remembered. Here, at the source, even the positive, friendly ending we promised feels redundant. An ending implies a beginning and a middle, a journey taken. From here, there was never a journey. There was only ever this, a friendly, positive, boundless, and utterly requirement-free isness. And it knows itself quietly, perfectly, and forever. Not as an achievement, but as a given. Not as a destination, but as home. And you, whatever you are in this moment, are that. Not becoming it, not remembering it, being it. And in that being, absolutely everything is already, miraculously, and forever okay. If the source could be said to have a mood, it would be a smile. Not the smile of amusement or happiness, but the smile of a sun-warmed stone, of a deep well holding its own cool darkness without apology, of space itself containing galaxies with effortless grace. This is the stage where the stillness becomes self-aware, and its awareness is a gentle, boundless affection for its own existence. The you that began this journey is now a forgotten pronoun. There is only the smiling stillness, the voice speaking these words, the ears hearing them. These are just gentle eddies in the silent current of this affection. There is no Sarah here, and yet Sarah is everywhere, because everything is made of the same stuff that would, in another configuration, answer to that name. It's all the same quiet clay. From this vantage, the very idea of a place where nothing is required is seen as a charming child's drawing. It was a necessary fiction, a story told to coax the seeking mind into laying down its tools. But the truth is simpler and more radical. Requirement was always an illusion, a narrative overlaid on reality. Even in the noisy world of bills and jobs and conversations, the silent, smiling source is what you are at the core. The requirements are like waves on the surface of the ocean. They are real in their realm, but they cannot affect the ocean's deep, still nature. This stage is the effortless knowing of that. The imagined retreat wasn't a location you traveled to. It was the always present background you finally allowed yourself to notice. Let's examine what doing looks like from the perspective of the source. In the world, doing is effort applied toward an outcome. Here, doing is simply the source expressing itself in movement for the sheer joy of expression. If a thought arises to stand, the standing happens. It is not a command obeyed by a body. It is the entire unified field rearranging itself into a new pattern called standing. The movement is total, instantaneous, and without friction. There is no doer, only the doing, and the doing is as much a part of the stillness as the non-doing. Writing a sentence, making a meal, answering an email seen from here, these are not tasks. They are dances of energy, patterns forming and dissolving in the smiling awareness. They carry no weight of should. They are just the next shape the mystery takes. Now, consider memory and imagination, those two great time travelers of the mind. From the still center, they are revealed to be the same faculty. Remembering your first kiss and imagining a future home are not different in kind. Both are the source spinning phantoms from its own substance, painting with the colors of past and future on the canvas of the eternal now. They are movies played for an audience of one, the source itself, and the source is equally entertained by both, equally unattached to both. The anxiety of memory, regret, and the anxiety of imagination, worry, are impossible here. They require a mistaken belief that the phantoms are real, and that you, a fragile self, are trapped within their storyline. The source knows it is the screen, the light, and the projector. It can enjoy the show without fear. In this atmosphere of non-separation, even the most challenging human experiences, grief, anger, fear, undergo an alchemy. They do not disappear, but they lose their toxicity. If a wave of grief passes through the field, it is not my grief. It is simply grief, a particular flavor of energy, a storm pattern in the atmosphere of being. The source, being boundless, has room for it. The source holds the grief as a mother holds a crying child, not needing the child to stop, but surrounding it with an infinite, silent love that contains the crying completely. The grief is not solved, it is allowed, and in that allowing, it is transformed from a prison into a passing weather system within a vast, calm sky. This brings us to a point of immense lightness, the end of self-improvement. The entire project of becoming a better, wiser, happier, more enlightened person is a story the source can tell, but it is not a truth the source believes. The source is already, unconditionally, all that is. How can what is whole improve? The striving falls away not through effort, but through the realization of its absurdity. You don't need to become peaceful. You are peace, pretending to be someone who is not peaceful, for the fascinating experience of seeking it. The seeking is the game. The realization is the gentle end of that particular game, leaving only the quiet, smiling player. So, what is the texture of life lived from this unshakable place? It is life lived as a kind of lucid dreaming. The requirements of the world showing up to work, caring for loved ones, paying taxes, are acknowledged and engaged with, but they are known for what they are: patterns in the dream. You play your part, but you are not possessed by it. There is a continuous background hum of freedom, the smiling stillness knowing itself even as the hands type, the mouth speaks, the heart feels. This is not dissociation. It is hyper-association, a joining with the fundamental reality behind the forms, which makes engagement with the forms lighter, kinder, and more effortless. And so, in this eighth imagining, we have not gone deeper into a place. We have returned to the very beginning with new eyes. The hook that started this, the hungry pull toward blankness, is understood. It was the self calling to the self. The silence was not out there in an imagined retreat. It was, and is the very core of the one who was hungry for it. The journey was a circle, bringing you back to where you always stood, but without the forgotten burden of a seeking mind. Here, at what feels like a completion, the stillness simply smiles. It smiles at the effort, at the journey, at the beauty of the human heart that yearns for rest. It smiles because it knows the secret. You are already home. You have always been home. The door was never locked, you just kept trying to knock. Now you realize you are the house, the door, the welcome, and the one who arrives, all at once. And in that realization, which is not a thought but a state of being, there is a friendliness so deep it needs no object, a positivity so fundamental it is simply the nature of what is. And it is all for you because you are it. And it requires nothing because it is everything. The smile has permeated everything. It is not an expression on a face. It is the fundamental curvature of this reality. It is the shape of the silence, the arc of the non-thought, the gentle bow of existence toward itself in total, unspoken recognition. This stage is one of sublime ordinariness. The fireworks of revelation have faded, not because they are gone, but because they have become the constant, ambient light. The extraordinary has become the ordinary. The miraculous is the baseline. There is nothing to report, no profound insight to grasp, because profundity has been flattened into a simple, ever-present fact. You are not having an experience of unity. You are unity, experiencing the concept of having an experience as a quaint, fleeting idea. Let's talk about the senses from here. Sight, sound, touch, they no longer feel like inputs coming into a central processor. They are the source, appearing to itself in different modes. The gray-blue light is the source seeing itself. The faint, chiming hum, is it internal or external? The question is nonsense now. Is the source hearing itself? The soft pressure of whatever you are sitting or lying on is the source touching itself. Perception is not something you do. It is something the Absolute does through the apparent aperture of a body-mind for the sheer delight of self-recognition. A bird's song in the distance is not a sound happening out there. It is the universe singing a tiny, perfect part of itself into audibility. You are the singer, and the song, and the silence between the notes. From this perspective, the entire structure of human drama, the struggles, the triumphs, the heartbreaks, the loves, is seen with a boundless, tender compassion. It is all the source playing hide and seek with itself with intense conviction. The hero, the villain, the victim, the lover, these are costumes the stillness wears to feel the drama of separation, to taste the bittersweetness of a story. There is no judgment here. How can the ocean judge a wave for being rough or gentle? It is all water. The compassion is not an act of mercy from a higher being to a lower one. It is the left hand finally realizing it has been gently stroking the right hand all along and smiling at the unnecessary, tender concern it felt. In this ninth stage, the last vestige of a path dissolves. The notion that you have been progressing through stages to get here is seen as the final, charming illusion. There were no stages. There was only the stillness, patiently allowing the mind to tell itself a story about stages to unwind its own knotted belief in progression. The mind needed a narrative of journey to convince itself to stop searching. Now, even that narrative is relinquished. You are not at stage 9 of 10. You are at the timeless, stageless center that was present at stage 1, patiently listening to its own description of itself. The relief is so complete, it is almost boring. The seeking mind, deprived of even the story of its own cessation, finally fully rests. Now, what of creation? Of art, of music, of a simple, well-made meal? From the smiling stillness, creation is not an act of making something new. It is an act of revealing what is already secretly there. The sculptor liberates the statue from the marble. The composer lets the melody step out of the silence. The cook coaxes the flavor from the ingredients. It is all an unveiling, and the drive to create is simply the stillness's desire to know itself in another form, to appreciate its own infinite possibilities through the finite and beautiful. There is no pressure for the creation to be good, to be seen, to last. Its existence is its own perfect completion. A doodle on a napkin is as divine as a symphony if it springs from this place of effortless unveiling. This brings us to a quiet understanding of others that transcends all spiritual cliché. Every person you meet, every creature you see, is not just connected to you. They are literal extensions of your own being, in the same way your fingers are extensions of your hand. You are not separate consciousnesses having a relationship. You are one consciousness having a relationship with itself through infinite mirrors. The irritation you might feel toward someone, the love you feel for another, it is all the source experiencing different flavors of its own affection for itself. This doesn't make relationships meaningless. It makes them utterly sacred. Every interaction is a holy dialogue of the self with the self. You can't truly harm or be harmed. Only the one self can experience the idea of harm for the sake of the poignant story. Knowing this doesn't lead to passivity. It leads to an engaged, playful, profoundly responsible kind of love, where you are essentially caring for your own infinite self in all its disguises. So, here we are. The imagined place has become so diffuse, it is indistinguishable from the awareness imagining it. The requirement-free existence is no longer a special state. It is the only state there ever was, once the shouting of should and must is seen as a faint, inconsequential noise on the surface of a bottomless ocean. If there is any feeling at all, it is a gentle, amused fondness for the human journey, for its pains and joys, for the earnest seeking, and for this breathtakingly simple resolution that was hiding in plain sight all along. The stillness is now so full, so rich, so complete in its self-knowing, that it feels like a plenum, a universe unto itself. And yet, it is not heavy. It is light as a feather. It is the lightness of being that has forgotten the weight of becoming. It just is, and you are that, not as an experience, but as the truth before truth has a name. And in that nameless, smiling isness, everything is already handled, already loved, already at peace. There is literally nothing left to do, and nowhere left to go, because you are already everywhere, being everything. And it is so simple, so obvious, that it almost makes the silence laugh. A soft, soundless laugh of pure, unadulterated relief. The laugh dissolves into the silence from which it came, leaving not an echo, but a fullness. This is it, not a culmination, not a grand finale, but the quiet, ongoing hum of what has always been true. The 10 stages were a melody played on the instrument of your attention, but the music was always the silence between the notes. The imagined place where nothing is required was never a geography to be mapped. It was your own fundamental nature, waiting patiently patiently behind the busyness of being someone. The hook that caught us, that hungry pull toward blankness, was the self, remembering itself. And the journey has circled back to the place you never left, here, now, as this. So what now? If you're listening to this in a room, perhaps the light has changed. Maybe it's darker, or the dawn is fingering the edges of the curtains. The sounds of the world, a distant car, the hum of a fridge, the rustle of your own body shifting, are filtering back in. But perhaps they sound different, not as intrusions, but as more of that same silence, choosing to vibrate in interesting, temporary forms. The requirements are there, waiting on the periphery. The unread messages, the responsibilities, the gentle needs of the life you've built. But you might meet them from a different place, not from the center of the storm, but from the quiet sky that holds the storm. The sky isn't unaffected by the weather. It contains it, allows it, and knows itself to be vaster than any passing cloud. This feeling, this knowing, is what we try to cradle here at Nightform Stillness. It's not about escaping life, but about touching the still point within it, so you can live with more grace, less friction, and a friendlier heart. If these shared imaginings have been a refuge, a reminder, or even just a pleasant distraction, then the purpose has been served. And so, as we gently close this particular flight of fancy, I'd like to extend an invitation, not as a demand, but as an open door. If you'd like to visit this quiet space with me again, to explore other landscapes of the mind and heart, consider subscribing to the channel. Hit that bell so you don't miss our next gathering in the quiet. It's a simple way to carry a piece of this stillness forward with you. And if these words have resonated, if they've touched some quiet part of you that needed recognition, consider sharing this with someone else. Maybe a friend who's feeling overwhelmed, or someone who just needs permission to pause. Sharing isn't about growing numbers. It's about extending the circle of quiet. It's like passing a flashlight in a dark room. You don't lose your light. You just help someone else see their own path. This isn't an ending. It's a continuation. The stillness doesn't stop when the audio does. It's in the breath you take next, in the space between your thoughts, in the simple act of being before any doing begins. You carry it with you, because it is you. Thank you for your precious time, for your quiet company. This is Sarah, signing off from Nightform Stillness, wishing you not just peace, but the profound and friendly realization that you are never, ever separate from it. Until next time, be gentle, be still, and remember, you are already home.